guys. I've got some slides. So it's a financial report for the year we've just finished, which was 2025, finished in December. And then there's a process of kind of preparing the accounts and looking at them as a PCC. So our year, which we do accounts for and that we give to the Charities Commission in October, runs from January to December. So that's what 25 is. And there's a few scripture bits that I put in just because I kind of felt inspired to. And when I was thinking about them at the time, thinking, how do these sort of fit? But then the songs that we've had this morning, I'm like, that's how they fit. This God's amazing, isn't he? He brings all the things together. So I wanted to bring Matthew 11. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So what's the financial position of the PCC? The accounts that I'm going to show you, they are for the year ended 31st of December. They've been prepared by me. They've reviewed and approved by the PCC during April, but they are pending the examination by APS accountants, where they'll look at our accounts, check them against our bank statement, and just look for kind of anything strange they might want to have more details on. So it's not an audit, but it is a review of them from an independent accountant. And then when they're final, they'll be signed by Andy as the chair of the PCC, and they're due at the Charities Commission by October. But we should be able to get them there before then this year. So the next page is our balance sheet. So the financial position, it's like on the 31st of December, what your assets and liabilities are. You won't be able to read these up on the screen, but you have them in your green booklets towards the end. You'll see that the financial statements are included for you. So our net assets, so if we were to get all of the money we had and pay off everything we owe, what would we be left with? That's what the net assets are, and they were 49,800, which sounds loads, but when you look at the next slide of kind of the running costs of the church, it's not loads, but it's okay. We're doing okay. We had 15,000 of that in designated funds, where the PCC have put it aside for a specific purpose, and 23.6 in restricted funds. Restricted funds, they can only be used for that purpose. So they've either been donated by somebody who said, I'm donating this for that reason, and then we restrict it. We don't spend it on anything else other than what they wanted us to, or it's come from a grant body who, again, have given it for a specific purpose. And then we've got 11.0 in our general funds. And we've got a policy of covering our running costs and trying to keep that general fund balance to be able to pay kind of between 8 and 12 weeks. So this is just slightly under that sort of 12 weeks, but it's well above the 8 weeks, so it's nicely within our reserves policy. And I've already explained this, but the bit at the bottom says that, what the funds are for. So the next one, the financial position, you can see our income and our expenses. Again, that's in your green booklets. We had income to unrestricted funds of 66.3 thousand, and we were able to actually rent out our hall and church more in this year than the year before, and so that income went up by 4,000. We also did about the same as our event fundraising as we did last year, but we did have a drop in our giving, in general and planned giving, of 9.6. And in unrestricted, we spent 61. So we spent 700 more on event costs and 2,000 more on church activities. And the biggest part of the church activity extra spend was on the roof. So we had to repair the roof, and that was well over 2,000. But we did get a grant towards half of that from the diocese, which is reflected in these numbers. And I can't read it on my phone because it's chopped off, but in the restricted area, obviously that's income from grants and specific donations. We raised 16,000 from memory for our building fund, and we got 21,000 in grants. Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, which I didn't have the numbers on there anyway, but yeah, you can see of that income at 42,000. Thank you. So that's really good, because when we decided to have a 3-year children, youth and family position, we obviously knew it was a big commitment as a church, and we intended to fund some of it through our own saving up, and from our income the diocese said we could reduce our parish share during that time to help us pay for it. But we also had a big hole which we needed to fund through grants, and so having 2 grants come in last year and then a further one in this year, we're doing well at kind of meeting that commitment for that 3-year post that obviously Mark is the holder of the job. So what does this mean? Our church raised enough money this year, so as in 2025, to cover our costs. We paid less money to the parish share than we should as a church, but this was agreed with the diocese in advance, and we have had grants committed, and some of that covers next year's spend as well, which is why you can see that the balance sheet has quite a big increase in net assets, and that's for committed spend during next year. But we are going to see costs go up in 2026. Obviously, there's a big war, which is everyone's very well aware. I spent £100 filling up my diesel car with a full tank the other day. I was like, oh my goodness. So, that's going to have an impact. So we're going to have to keep an eye on our costs carefully during this year, so that we can have, at the end of this year and next year's APCM, us saying we raised enough money to cover our costs. That's where we want to end up, to be sustainable as a long-term church. And, we've started some exciting things in this last year, which the other reports will tell you about. And we are so grateful for all those who contributed to keep this church going and who support the church family and reach out to our community. So I've got little pie charts. This one, hopefully can see some of that. It's not in the booklet, but if you want a copy, we can maybe email it out after. I can email it as a PDF. Let's give it to Sue, maybe. So you can see this is a pie chart of where the money came from, and our planned giving makes up our biggest contribution. So individual church members making commitments to parish giving or standing order or putting out in the plate on a Sunday. That's most of where our money comes from. But we do have the use of the hall, and that generates the next biggest share in terms of our general day-to-day kind of operations. But you can see in this chart the grants that we had for the children, youth and family worker being 21,000, and then we had quite substantial fundraising last year for the building project, raising 16,000, which has been enough to cover the initial costs of sort of getting all the plans and architects' drawings and all of that, so that we would be ready to go for bigger grants to carry on that project. So it's a really good start. And I think while we saw the drop in the planned giving overall, part of that is, sometimes we do gift days and we go and raise money, and that goes into our kind of giving generally. Well, because we were doing a lot of fundraising for the building project, I think, overall we can also see that, we gave more to that instead last year. So I don't see it necessarily as a bad thing that, we've got slightly less planned giving, because we had specific things that we were fundraising for, and they did really well. So where does our money go out? You can see that our parish share is a big part of that, so that's contribution to the diocese towards the fact that we are very, very blessed in having a full-time vicar. We also have full-time children's worker, and we have part-time administrator and cleaner. And that's cover the wages section of this. So you can see that the kind of the people costs in Andy, and that's most of what we spend. So we have quite low other costs. And our other costs are getting started on the building project. We spent 10,000 on that last year, and we had running costs of 7,000. That's actually down from the year before, and that is thanks to Stuart and his efforts in renegotiating our energy supplier costs. So I think that's really, really good to have kind of kept that under control in the last year. So thank you, Stuart. And we've spent, obviously, money on education, welfare, and children's work, and housekeeping, smaller amounts, raising charitable giving. So that's our Christmas services, where we get collections for dedicated charities. So what could I do? Being part of this church family is the biggest and most wonderful thing that you can do. Thank God for all he's done. Pray that God gives us wisdom in our decisions. It's not always easy to decide what we should and shouldn't spend on, and as a PCC it can be difficult, so I do pray for wisdom for us. Do invite others to join us in knowing and worshipping God, and I'm sure there's always roles available on the PCC. I'm sure Martin would definitely not say no to another church warden, so if you feel inspired, do get into contact with Andy. So looking ahead, what do we need to think about? Well, we need to remember that all of this is about God. So that's why I've got another little verse on the next slide. I keep my eyes always on the Lord, with whom all at my right hand I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest secure, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead, nor will you let your faithful one see decay. You make known the path of life, and you fill me with your joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. And that the bit that I chose that one for is because there's a song like "The Joy of the Lord is my strength," and I feel like sometimes when we're doing stuff with money, and it can feel like difficult, can't it? It's like, I've got to get enough to do this and that, but our strength comes from the fact that we take joy in our closeness and knowledge and our love from God. So how we raise money, this is similar to last year, just sort of a recap of where the things come in. So we've got regular donations, one-off and legacies, grants, we do fundraising, and we've got our hall rent. Like I say, I'll try and get this sent by email for you so you can read it later. How we spend money. Next slide. Oh, I skipped. No, sorry. So we spend it on our parish share, on our wages, on our running costs, and our building. Then the next slide is just a reminder about the parish giving scheme. They do all the administration for us, and they claim all the gift aid, so it's really useful if you have your regular donation via the parish giving scheme. So the money just lands in our account then, and we don't have to do as many admin stuff. Next slide. What could I do? Well, we've got more grants to apply for with the building project, so you could help us to apply for a grant. Pray that we continue to love God and serve others. Make a building project pledge. We had a lot last year. If it's still on your heart and you've not made one yet and you want to, we're still accepting them. Review regular giving. Thank God for what he's doing. Support fundraising event, or add a legacy to my will. And the last slide is just a reflection on the fact that God is the same today, tomorrow, and forever, and is like always there. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. Does anyone have any questions? If I can't answer it on the spot, I'll take it away and come back to you, but feel free to.
Not really a question. I just want to say it was just a really good presentation.
Oh,
so thank you very much. And it's good as well as talking about finances from a biblical perspective as well, because obviously we all, as a part of the church, obviously believe that God, we've got a vision to with all what we're doing in the church and the community, and we also believe sort of that God provides. And sometimes we have to step out of faith, which we have done, and you've given examples where God has provided. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mark. And thank you, Tom, because this was way easier to read than my phone.
Joe, you are such a gift. Thank you so much. That was really helpful, very clear. You put a lot of work in, I know, and you manage it among a very demanding job. So thank you so much. It's a real blessing. As Joe mentioned, we haven't yet had the accounts approved by the independent examiner. So these are currently draft accounts that are pending the eternal independent examiner's report. So what we're asking you to do is we're asking you as as the members of the electoral roll to receive these accounts today, subject to the independent examiner's final report. If any material changes are required by the examiner, then the corrected accounts will be brought back to the PCC for formal approval, and then they'll be reported back to you at a specially convened meeting, probably straight after Sunday service, but we will let you know if that happens. So if that's all right with everyone, then we will carry on. But if people are happy to receive these as draft accounts subject to the final approval by the independent examiner. Yes. Great, thank you.